Hello everyone, this is Logan59XP here, and today we are here to talk about the Super Mario Galaxy movie. I just got back from seeing it just a few minutes ago. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and we're going to talk about it. So yeah, why don't we just go ahead and get into it. But before, well, actually, we will get into it in a second, but I do think there is one thing I should probably address about this movie before we actually talk about the movie itself. And that is, this movie going in has had a surprisingly low critical score, even compared to the first movie. Now, to be clear, the first movie was by no means a critical darling, and for what it's worth, I think the first movie is a okay movie. I liked it fine enough, but it's by no means great, and it definitely has aspects of it that I would have changed or removed. But ultimately, if you were a Mario fan and you saw that movie, you probably came out of it thinking that it was pretty all right. And that's kind of my opinion on the first movie, is that it was pretty all right. You know, a solid 7, maybe 7.5 out of 10. An enjoyable enough time with enough references and callbacks that it was well worth the price of admission, at least in my opinion. However, to be fair to the critics, I know people love the clown on the critics, the movie critics, but to be fair to them, at least as far as the first movie is concerned, if you did not care about Mario at all, if you were just a normal view, you know, if you didn't care about Mario or any of that stuff, if you were just viewing it as a film on its own, then yeah, the critical score makes way more sense, because the entire appeal of that movie is that it's Mario and it has Mario stuff in it. If you don't care about any of that, then the movie has significantly less value on its own. Like, you replace all the characters and the setting and all that stuff, and you replace it with like just some generic characters and generic setting, then the movie falls off significantly. But the movie knows what it is. It's a Mario movie, and it leans on that. The reason why the movie is fun is because it's a Mario movie, right? And I think that applied to that movie, and I think that also applies to this one as well. If you don't care about Mario at all, and you're viewing this as just a film on its own, I think the critical score makes more sense. In fact, obviously we'll get to this, but I will say, having now seen it, while I do think 44% of Rotten Tomatoes or whatever the heck the score is right now, I do think that's lower than it should be, I can understand why critics wouldn't like it. There's not much of a structure to the film. I think even the first movie might have more structure than this one does. Now, I don't really mind that too much, because again, you're going to these movies to see the characters and the references and the music and all that stuff. So like the story really is secondary. The structure really is secondary to just stuff happening, if I'm being really blunt about it. But I can sorta understand why the critical reception for this movie is as low as it is. I don't think it deserves the score that it has gotten, like the 44% average. I think that's definitely way too low. Like, I'd say like 60 something, I think I'd be more okay with. I think that would be fair, right? I don't remember what the critical score for the first movie was, but like, I think 40 something is like, that's too low. That the movie is definitely nowhere near on like 40. Like, no, that's ridiculous. It is at the absolute lowest, like a 60 something, right? Which I know isn't great still, but like 40 is like, I know I know Rotten Tomatoes and Metacritic, you know, they're an aggregate, they're an average. Obviously, not every individual review is actually a 40 something, but I'm just saying, if you want like the main takeaway, here's the main takeaway of the movie before we actually get into it. If you liked the first one, well enough, you will like this one. And if you didn't care for the first one, you're not going to care for this one. I think that's probably if you want like my quick and dirty kind of like take on the movie, I'd say that's kind of where I fall with it. I'd say I enjoyed it about as much as the first one, but ironically, I might have more critiques of it than the first one, because the first one I only really had two complaints. That was the Mario and Luigi like plumbing scene with the dog, which felt very much like an Illumination Mandate type of scene. I didn't like that, and I didn't like the Take on Me insert for the DK scene, especially when they made like the DK music and it got cut and it got thrown on the soundtrack instead. So, but aside from those two things, that's really the only two complaints I really had with the first movie, at least from what I can remember. Now, I haven't seen the first movie since it came out, so I'm going purely off of memory, but Those are really the only two issues I had with that movie. This one, funny enough, is better in some ways, but in others, I can see why people would like the first movie more. But the main point is I liked it overall. I have my criticisms of it, and we'll get to it as we go through the plot here. But for the most part, again, if you liked the first one, you'll like this one, and if you didn't like the first one, then you're not gonna like this one. You don't go into this movie expecting a well laid out story or anything like that, because it definitely is not that. You come here for like, hey, look, it's that thing. It's the thing from the like that is the entire appeal of the movie. I think that's totally fine. I don't think that's a negative against the movie, because like that the movie knows what it is, right? Like I think everyone understands that like these movies are not like you're coming here to see Mario and other characters do the things and reference the things and hear the music from like that's the entire appeal of these movies. So all right, that's a lot of preamble, which might not be painting the movie in the best light, but I'm just trying to address kind of the initial thing going in where, the critics really don't like this movie. But again, to be fair to them, and again, to be fair to the first movie as well, if you do not care about Mario in any way, shape, or form, then you get nothing out of these movies. So I can totally understand why critics wouldn't like them just on that basis alone, let alone any structural complaints. But let's go ahead and let's go through the movie piece by piece, and I'll give my thoughts on the general gist of how I feel about it. Even though, again, just to give you a heads up, I liked the movie overall. I liked it about as much as the first one, which is, solid 7 out of 10, 7.5 maybe, I liked it fine enough. And there were some cool surprises in this movie. There was one thing in particular that I did not know going in that I thought was a really cool addition, but we'll get to that when we get to it. Alrighty, so the movie starts with basically the scene from the first trailer where Rosalina fights Megaleg. You see a big pan through the stars that looks very reminiscent of the Jetsons. You fly past some planets, then you eventually land on the Comet Observatory, which is a different design than the Comet Observatory that's in the original game, but it's still clearly the Comet Observatory. And you see all the Lumas, messing around, and then Rosalina reads them a bedtime story featuring Peach. Then Megaleg attacks, and essentially, if you saw the first trailer, that's about 70-ish% of the fight. Like, the fight is not very long, but it's a neat fight, although it is a bit of a shame in retrospect that, like, a good chunk of it is already in the trailer, but it was cool for the time it was on screen. Now, I don't actually know if they played Megaleg's theme or not. Now, of course, the entire movie, I'm keeping my ears perked and ready to hear any little possible musical cue. Now, during the bedtime story with the Lumas, I did hear the little do 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 do. Like I heard that little musical cue. It was I only heard it for like 2 seconds before it went away, but I did hear it. So that's like the first Galaxy track reference right there. Is they played like, I guess, what do you call it? Like the Luma theme? I don't know what the name of that, what you would call it. I think of it as like the sad theme. It's like it's the sad theme of Galaxy 1. I don't remember what the actual name of the track is on the soundtrack itself. I want to say it's Luma or something like that, but actually, or is it Family? Or is that a different one? No, Family's a different track. Whatever. Point is, I heard it. I heard it for like a brief second. I wish they played it for longer. Wish they played it for the whole sequence, but whatever. It is what it is. So yeah, we got the fight with Rosalina and Megaleg, and this is something that's honestly a bit of a disappointment, is Rosalina, which, is the main new character from Galaxy, is really not in that much of the movie. Honestly, her biggest contribution to that movie is the Megaleg fight. And then she basically is a nothing burger for the rest of the movie. Basically, during the fight with Megaleg, she gets captured and she gets sent up to the big alien ship. And then she goes to like Bowser's planet. And then she's there for the rest of the movie until, spoiler alert, everyone saves her at the end. Oh yeah, by the way, I probably should have made it pretty clear at this point that Yeah, if you haven't seen the movie, don't listen to this because I will be spoiling stuff. Apologies for already sort of spoiling something already. That she's captured and that she gets saved. I know that's not saying much for a Mario movie, but I want to make it crystal clear before I get into any of like the real spoilers. Like, this is a spoiler video, so go watch the movie first, then come back. But yeah, so I think that's a little disappointing that like she's not in more of the movie. like Peach is one of the main characters of the movie, similar to how she is in the first movie, and I think that's fine. But it is a kind of a shame that in the Galaxy movie, Rosalina is the Peach, like what Peach would normally be, where like Peach, she gets captured and then you rescue her at the end. Well, in this movie, like Rosalina is the Peach. Like it's kind of disappointing in that respect, but we'll probably see her again at some point, so I'm not too worried about that. That's not a huge deal, but it is something I will point out. That it is a bit disappointing that she wasn't like I was expecting her to be like a main character. Like I was expecting her to be along with the group, and she wasn't. Now, admittedly, maybe there was some trailer that came out at some point that showed her being locked up, but the only trailers I saw for this movie were the main three trailers. Um, I didn't see any of like the little side videos they put out on social media or anything like that. So the only real thing I knew about this movie going in was what was in the first three trailers. And then, of course, Fox is in the movie. And we'll, of course, talk about Fox when we get to him. But, yeah, so she gets captured by Bowser, or Bowser Jr., rather. She gets captured by Bowser Jr. And if you saw my reaction to the trailer that had Bowser Jr. in it when he speaks for the first time, really, like, I remember saying, his voice sounds kind of weird, his eyes look kind of weird, but I'll probably get used to it as the movie goes on. I would say that's more or less true, having now seen it. His eyes do look a little weird, and his voice isn't really isn't super fitting, but it's fine. It's not a big deal. It's weird at first. It's weird at first. But you get used to it, and then it stops mattering as much. But whatever. So Rosalina gets captured, and then basically one of the Lumas that's with her when she gets captured escapes. And then the Luma goes to the Mushroom Kingdom to recruit Peach and the Mario Bros. And all that stuff, and I noticed this at the time, and this probably is not on purpose, but that feels very reminiscent of the first Paper Mario with oh god, I forgot the name of the character. The little star character that's like trapped with Peach or whatever. That felt very reminiscent of that. I don't think that was on purpose. Maybe it was on purpose. I don't think it was, but if it was a reference to that, neat, but there's not really much I have to say about it. Other than I guess it's a sort of neat reference, if it is a reference. But I don't think it's a reference. I think it's purely coincidental. But yeah, so after that, we cut to the scene of apparently it's Peach's birthday, and oh yeah, I completely skipped over this scene. See, I'm trying to go in order here, but if I end up jumping around, apologies. But whatever, it's not a big deal. Oh yeah, I forgot. Does this scene happen before or after? I just saw it, and I'm not 100% sure. Actually, no. This happens. After Rosalina gets captured, I believe. You see the scene from the trailer of Mario and Luigi on bikes in the desert. They go to Toast Arena with the Fallen Pyramid, and they go and they get Yoshi. Again, if you saw, I believe it was the second trailer where they showed them getting Yoshi, that's pretty much what happens there. I don't really have much to say about it, other than I'm surprised they didn't spend more time there. Okay, here's something I will say. One concern I had going into this movie was that I was worried it was not going to justify the Galaxy title. That, the movie was going to be, 50% Galaxy and 50% on Earth for some reason. I can safely say, having seen it, that the movie does earn that title, generally speaking. Now, it doesn't always feel like Galaxy, but they are in space for I would say at least 2/3 of the movie. I'd say the first 40-45 minutes. I'm just making up. I don't actually know. I don't even know how long the movie is, to be honest. But I'd say the first 30 to 45 minutes, that's largely on Earth. But it doesn't take that long before everyone is officially off of Earth and they don't come back until. Actually, I wouldn't even say they don't come back until the end of the movie. So I think the movie does like the name, I'm okay with the name because that was my main thing. Is it's like if you're going to be called the Galaxy movie, then this movie has to be like 75%. I don't know if it's 75%, but it's enough of the movie that I think the title is fine, right? Like the Toast Arena scene is like a couple minutes, and then they never go back, and that's really the only scene on Earth aside from the castle going up. like they really don't spend that long on Earth, all things considered. Um, But anyways, so yeah, they go to Toast Arena. They get Yoshi in the warp pipe. His voice, who is of course voiced by Donald Glover. I personally feel that they should have just kept the recordings from the games. They should have just kept the recordings from the games because they use sounds from the games. Like there's a bunch of Galaxy sound effects that they reuse. Like for the launch stars and the Lumas have their iconic sounds. Like they reuse like not all, but like a good amount of like the Galaxy era like sound effects that you know and remember. Again, they use it for the warp star. The launch star. They use it for some of the power ups. They use it for the Lumas, like the iconic Luma sounds are intact still. I mean, of course, the Lumas speak and they have their voices and stuff, but in addition to that, they still have like the iconic Luma sound effects, which is nice. Um, but yeah, so they get Yoshi, and then they go back to the Mushroom Kingdom, and then we see what I thought was going to be basically a recreation of the Star Festival. It's not quite that, even though that's clearly what it's supposed to be. It's clearly supposed to be a reference to the Star Festival from the first game, but it's actually Peach's birthday. um, and the scene is not particularly long. Again, it's probably only like a couple of minutes. And again, if you've seen the scenes from the trailer of like Mario and Luigi and Yoshi walking around, and Yoshi eats like the candy apple or whatever, like all that stuff obviously is more or less the same. They don't spend too much time on it. One thing I did notice though, and I think it was like one of two times in the movie where what's actually happened, and this is one aspect of the movie that I'm just going to say right now is much better than the first one. I don't know if I like this one more than the first one overall, but I can tell you one aspect of it that is definitely better without question. One of the big criticisms of the first movie is that there's too much like needle drop licensed music, right? Like there's too many like, oh, this song is clearly supposed to start right here at this exact moment. Like there's too many of that in the first movie. Again, the Take on Me one I think is the most infamous one. But there's also the, I need a hero moment during the training sequence in the first movie, among others that I'm probably forgetting. This movie has only, as far as I can remember, it only has like 2 licensed songs. And only one of them really stands out as being like a licensed song. And it's integrated well enough that it's not distracting. So there's a scene where they show like Yoshi's, I guess, kind of like backstory, like where he's been before he went to Toast Arena, where he apparently committed crimes up in Brooklyn in like the regular world in Brooklyn or whatever. And you hear what is a song that I don't know what the name of the song is, but I've heard it before. It's an instrumental track. It's not a lyrical track like we would get later. But it is definitely a licensed song of some kind, but I don't know what the track is, but I have heard it before. But what I am trying to say though is that licensed song that plays during that Yoshi sequence in like Brooklyn or whatever, that I think was a good way of doing licensed music. It didn't feel like a big needle drop moment. I thought that was handled much better than any of the licensed music in the first movie. But anyways, oh boy. Anyway, but yeah, so the Star Festival is now Peach's birthday, all that stuff. Now, okay, here's the part I was going to get into because I brought up licensed music for a reason. During that sequence at Peach's birthday, aka the Star Festival, you hear "Shooting Star" from Earth, Wind, and Fire. Now, I like Earth, Wind, and Fire, and I really like the at least the music that I grew up listening to from them. That and "Shooting Star" is one of them. So I personally had no issue with that song being in the movie, but I think it also just works better because it's not a needle drop moment. It's a subtle thing. Like, I think the few times there's licensed music in this movie, it's integrated way better than it was in the first one. Again, the first one, it was very needle drop, very in your face, very like Guardians of the Galaxy style. But the problem is that that worked for Guardians of the Galaxy because it fit with the character. It fit with Peter Quill. It made sense. It fit in that series, but it doesn't work in Mario to just have random licensed songs, especially when you have an ocean's worth of iconic music you can draw from. But anyways, yeah, they play like not the original version of Shooting Star, but what I think is like a cover or something. But either way, they play a version of it, but it's subtle and it's in the background. You'll recognize it. You'll recognize it if you've heard the song before, but it doesn't immediately stand out. But it's not distracting, right? It's way better than, again, the Take on Me scene or even the Holding Out for a Hero scene in the first movie. It's integrated so much better. And the best part, those are the only two songs in the movie that are licensed songs, and they're only in the first part of the movie. Once they actually go into space, you will never hear a single licensed song ever again. At least I didn't hear any that sounded like they were licensed songs. There's literally only two in the whole movie. So that is one thing about this movie that I will absolutely stand by is better than the first one. There's much less licensed music, and when there is licensed music, it's integrated way better than it was in the first movie. So I will stand by that. I don't know what people's opinions on this movie are generally. I haven't seen any of the reviews myself. I've seen the thumbnails and the titles, but I haven't actually watched any of them. So I don't know how people feel about the licensed music integration in this movie. But I think it's done way better than it was in the first movie. So that's a solid win for this movie, in my opinion. But anyway. So, then shortly afterwards, we get the scene from the last trailer where you see, the spaceship comes down and it takes the castle. And to their credit, and again, this is something that I was kind of worried about. One thing about this movie I was also worried about going in is that they weren't going to utilize the Galaxy soundtrack as much as I would like. And technically speaking, that is still true. The movie did not use the Galaxy soundtrack as much as I would like, but to the movie's credit, it uses it often enough. It uses it often enough in a way that I like. So it's not a huge deal. So, for example, during the sequence of the laser ship, shooting the lasers into the ground and rising the castle up, you hear the music that plays during that sequence in the actual game, right? And it sounds cool when you hear it, including that really nice like escalation track that I forget the name of, but it's a track I really, really like in the first game. They include that for a section, which is cool. They also play like the airship theme, the do 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 do. They play that for a section as well when the airship is flying in, which is nice. So they don't use it as much. I think they don't linger. I think my biggest complaint is when they use the Galaxy music, it's awesome. But they don't use it for long enough. It's kind of like they use it for like 5 or 10 seconds and then they transition into like new original music. And it's like, and it's fine. But I'd rather they just go all in and just use the Galaxy music. Like don't use use the Galaxy soundtrack. But I was thinking that, we'll get Gusty Garden and we'll get Good Egg, but that's about it. I didn't think they were actually going to use like the escalating, again, I forget the name of the track. Let me look it up right now. Let me open Foobar and look up what's the name of the track. The one I'm thinking of, the one that's like this really cool escalation that happens in the original game. Let me look it up real quick because this track is a big enough deal for me that I want to like acknowledge it by name so people know what track I'm talking about. Okay, where is it? Let's see, Galaxy. Catastrophe. That's the one I'm talking about. So on the Galaxy official soundtrack, the track that's called Catastrophe, they play that in the movie. Again, if you don't know it by name, if you hear it, you'll be like, oh, it's that one. It's that one from the opening, right? They play that during that sequence at one point, and it's really cool. When I heard that, I was like, yay, they included it. They actually included the soundtrack bit. So yeah. So one other thing going into the movie that I was a little concerned about was we saw in, I believe it was the last trailer, where we see the lasers, the castle goes up, but then they do that fight with Bowser Jr. And then they immediately come back down. Now, I was hoping that that was a misdirection. I was hoping that that was kind of like a misdirection, like, oh, we're showing this sequence from the end of the movie, but in the trailer it seems like it's happening right afterwards. So that sequence does happen after the Bowser Jr. fight. It's not from at the end of the movie, but they don't crash land back down to Earth, or the Mushroom Kingdom, rather. Instead, they crash land in Honey Hive Galaxy. Now, of course, we knew Honey Hive was going to be in the movie because we knew the Queen Bee was going to be in the movie because they told us the Queen Bee was in the movie in the last direct. And she is in the movie for literally 10 seconds. I don't have an issue with that. I didn't think we needed to linger on a Honey Hive at all, but they are on Honey Hive for like 20 seconds. Like, essentially, they come crashing down. Oh yeah, so yeah, we have the Bowser Jr. fight, and it's more or less what you've seen in the trailer, just an extended version of it. Now there is a part during that Bowser Jr. fight where I swear to God, I heard one of the Sunshine boss themes. I heard like a little snippet from one of the Sunshine boss themes during that fight, which would make sense because, of course, Bowser Jr. is a Sunshine character. He's from Sunshine, and he has EGAD's brush and everything, even if it is based on his Wonder design overall. So that's probably on purpose. I'd have to, of course, re-listen to that scene to know for certain if what I heard was actually what I heard, but I'm pretty sure I heard like a small, it lasted only a couple of seconds, but I heard a small recognizable bit from from one of the Sunshine like boss themes. I think it's the only Sunshine theme you hear in the entire movie. Now, of course, I wasn't expecting to hear Sunshine music in the movie because it's the Galaxy movie. But I'm pretty sure I heard like one of the Sunshine boss themes for like a couple of seconds during that fight. I swear to God I heard it. It's probably on purpose, but I'm not 100% certain. But yes, we get that fight. Come back down to the Mushroom Kingdom. They crash the Mushroom Kingdom. They come down and they crash into Honey Hive, and they destroy some flowers. There's a whole back and forth with Mario and Bowser because Bowser is tiny, like we saw in the first trailer. Then eventually he gets bigger because Mario punches him because Bowser wants him to punch him. Whatever. And then they walk up to the Honey Hive kind of castle. And essentially, Bowser offers to stay on the planet to repay the damages done to the Honey Hive Galaxy because they destroyed a bunch of flowers when the castle crashed. And we see the Honey Hive Queen, who very much looks like the Honey Hive Queen. Like, she looks exactly the same as she does in the games. They didn't change her design at all. Not that I would expect them to, but yes, so she very much looks like the Honey Hive Queen. She is the Honey Hive Queen. Pretty simple. We also see the bugs, like the flying bug enemies from Galaxy. They're also in the movie. They actually serve as vehicles. There's because they use one of them. They use one of those flying mechanical bugs to, at least I think they're mechanical. They use one of those flying bugs to go to Gateway Galaxy. Then yeah, Bowser stays on the planet, but he gets sucked up by Bowser Jr.'s ship or whatever. So yeah, I guess moving on then. I think I've gotten everything so far. I think I've gotten all the major story beats so far. So basically, rewinding a little bit. So when the Luma goes to Peach's castle to ask for help, Peach and Toad go off on their own first, and Mario and Luigi and Yoshi stay behind initially before joining them later. And when that happens, they go to Gateway Galaxy. And when they're at Gateway Galaxy, you see a ton of enemies from throughout the series. There's a bunch of Galaxy enemies, but also enemies and just NPCs from other games. You have the Piantas are there. The tree guys from that one Galaxy 2 Galaxy are there. Stuff like that. And during that sequence, you hear Good Egg. You hear Good Egg during that sequence when they arrive when they arrive to Gateway. But funny enough, as far as I can remember, they never play the actual Gateway theme in the movie. Now, it wouldn't have really fit, because Gateway Galaxy in this movie is nothing like the Gateway Galaxy in the game, because it's this big, like, metro hub with, like, a spaceport and stuff, so it's not at all the same, really. So I'm not surprised that they didn't use it, and I'm not annoyed that they didn't use it. I thought that just having Good Egg as the music was fine enough. Um, then we see the sequence of we see the sequence with Peach and Toad talking to Rob. Now, again, we saw this in one of the screen. We knew this going in that Rob was in the movie. He's only there for like a few seconds, really, but they do have this joke with him that I actually really like, where Peach is like, "Okay, where's the spaceport?" And then Rob is like, "Oh yeah, it's right over here," right? And he slowly turns, and Peach and Toad are visibly annoyed. And then later on, Mario and Luigi also end up talking to him, and they also have to do, and he also has to do the slow. I think that's actually kind of funny. Right, I think that was one of the like that was a sequence that I can say I liked that joke, because that's of course a reference to the fact that Rob is famously really slow to like the real life toy Rob, right, from back in the day. Like he would move so, like if you've ever watched like the AVGN videos or whatever of Rob, you'll know how slow he moves. They made that into a joke in the movie. I thought that was cool. That was probably my favorite joke in the movie. There weren't many jokes in the movie that I particularly liked, but that was one of them. I liked that joke of him taking forever to move his arms, because that's just how slow he is, because that's a reference to how slow he is in real life. So I thought that was cool. Alrighty then. So when Peach and Toad get to the spaceport, actually no, before they get to the spaceport, they go to the casino, right? Wait, no. Okay, no, so, I'm skipping back and forth here. No, when they get to Gateway Galaxy, they get to like kind of the lobby area, and then a monkey who I'm pretty sure is supposed to be the monkey from Mario 64 that steals your hat on that one level. Like he steals Toad's bag, and then they go underground, and they have a little neat reference to like it says like level 2-1 or world 2-1. That's a neat little thing, and you hear the do. You hear that for like a brief second. It's a minor thing. It's something they probably already did in the first movie, but hey, it's something. Then, and this is a nitpick. This is a nitpick. It's not a big deal, but this is a nitpick. Then they go through a wall, but it's not like the wavy pattern from Mario 64. It's this like glitchy tech pattern. I don't really like that. They should have just made it like they should have just made it like the Mario 64 painting effect, where it's like a wavy like pattern, and it makes like the sound that it would make in Mario 64. They didn't do that though. They did this like glitchy pattern instead that they walk through. It's a minor nitpick. It's not a big deal, but like considering how many other references are in the movie, I really don't see why they couldn't have just had it be like a Mario 64 painting type thing. Like when you're going to Shifty Sand. Is that what it's called? Shifty Sand? That's the world with the pyramid, right? In 64. Like where you just jump through a wall, essentially. And it's just a regular wall. There's no painting there, but it's essentially a painting, an invisible painting. They should have just done it like that. They didn't, but whatever. Then they go to where basically the casino would be, I think. And it's this kind of like seedy underground aspect. You can see a couple of references. Like it's kind of this like techno. It's like, I don't know. I'm guessing it's supposed to be kind of like a Blade Runner type, whatever looking place, And there's not too much to say about it other than there is a building with the N64 logo on it. That's cool. But eventually they do get to the casino, which does not play the casino theme from Sunshine, which is a bit disappointing. I was hoping they were. But they did play a different song instead. They played, funny enough, for some weird reason, I cannot remember what song they played, but they played like one of the iconic tracks. I forgot which one they played. It wasn't Good Egg, because they already played a Good Egg earlier. They played some other track. For some reason, I'm forgetting which one it is. Oh, Jump Up Superstar. They play Jump Up Superstar. Not with lyrics, but they play like an instrumental version of Jump Up Superstar when they go to the casino. That's neat. I would have preferred, like a movie version, an orchestral version of the casino theme, personally. But it's not really the Sunshine Casino, to be fair. But whatever. It's neat that we got Jump Up Superstar in the movie, I suppose. And then they have this little battle with the Ninjas and Wart that we've seen before. Everyone knows it at this point. Then finally they go to the space deck, and they're going to go to Space Junk Galaxy. But before they go there, they go to the flight. They go to like the flight deck, and we see we see like the Pikmin are there. They have like a little ship or Pikmin show up for just a scene. You never see them again. It's just a little cameo. But then we get the big moment that they really should have just saved for the movie itself. Like, they really should not have told us this beforehand. This should have been a surprise. It would have been a cool surprise. But of course, we see the one and only Fox McCloud. And his voice is pretty good. I forget who the voice actor for him is. Oh yeah, Glenn Powell. That's right. I have the Wikipedia article up here as reference, just in case I need to reference something. Yeah, Glenn Powell. He does a good job. He sounds very much like what I would expect Fox to sound like. So his voice is solid. We get a little like kind of not 2D, but kind of like a retro, like a 2D, 3D kind of like little short. And it has the Star Fox 64 theme in it. In fact, you hear the Star Fox music a couple of times in the movie, which is cool. And every time you hear it, it's pretty cool. But yeah, they have this little backstory of like, I'm Fox McCloud, the leader of Star Fox, with my pals Falco and Peppy and Slippy. And they even show like the iconic screenshot of like Peppy's like headshot from like Star Fox 64 at one point. It's kind of funny. But yeah, so they are not in the movie beyond that point. Like, I was wondering if maybe Falco would show up, like actually show up, but no. It's just Fox. But the rest of his crew does get shout outs in that little kind of like preamble sequence, so that's something. And you get to hear the do 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 do. Yeah, you hear that when it's doing that, and you hear some of the other Star Fox music later. So that was cool. So yeah, basically Peach and Toad, they go with him, and then Mario and Luigi finally catch up, and then now they're all together, and then they go flying off in the R-Wing, and then they end up running into Bowser Jr.'s ship again. And during this sequence, they play Corneria. Now, to be clear, when I say Corneria, that name, if I tell someone, oh yeah, they played Corneria, I should probably make it clear what version of Corneria I'm talking about. Now, to me, Corneria is the Melee stage. When I think Corneria, I think of the Melee stage. They play that. They play that music during that sequence. Not for the whole sequence, but they play it for like half the sequence. You know, the do 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 do. You know, that track, you know, the one we've all heard 1,000 times in Smash, they play that. So that was cool. I'm gonna say that like for every single time they play like a song. It literally is, hey look, they played the thing. But like, I'm still happy. Like, I know it's probably a meme how much I've said it at this point, but like, anytime they play an iconic track we all recognize, it's always cool. And I didn't think we were going to hear Corneria in the movie. Like, I figured they were going to have at least one Star Fox track in the movie, because they have to have at least a sequence from when he first gets introduced. But it was cool that they actually included Star Fox music beyond that point. Like, we actually got to hear it in one of the, like, the fight scenes, which was cool. So that was cool to hear, like, the Melee Corneria thing. I don't know what it's actually called, like, in the games. But, like, in Melee, like, the Corneria theme, like, that one, like, they play that, so... the whole structure of this entire discussion is probably totally messed up. I'm just kind of like, there's no structure to this at all, but whatever. To be fair, the movie doesn't have that much structure either. I'm just kind of I'm just going in order here, scene by scene, and commenting on stuff I like or don't like. You know, but to be fair, that's pretty much what a review is. I mean, this isn't a review per se, but it basically is my review in practice, but whatever. Point is, they have a little fight with the R-Wing. It's cool. We get to hear Star Fox music. Then Bowser Jr. grabs a super scope off of a big list of gadgets on a wall, and you can see Flood, and I think the poltergeist. I think you can also see that in there, but I definitely saw Flood. It's not used in the movie, but you do see it. It's referenced. But they use a super scope to transform Mario and Luigi into babies, which... You know, that's a scene. Personally, that's something I would have cut out. That I did not care for the baby antics during that one section of the movie. It doesn't last super long. It lasts probably like 5 to 10 minutes at most. But like, there is a whole sequence where, oh yeah, so they eventually they shoot down the R-Wing, and the R-Wing comes crashing down onto a dinosaur planet. And during that time, there's a bunch of baby antics that I personally did not care for, but whatever. But eventually eventually though, they get off the planet. They get off the planet because the Common Observatory, Luigi calls like Mayday, and the Common Observatory comes and saves them. And then they go flying off to Bowser's planet to fight Bowser. And Bowser's planet, by the way, the actual planet, there's a sequence where you can see like what the planet is, and it's kind of like a fusion of various different kind of Bowser's worlds we've seen throughout the years. There's definitely a big influence from 3D World with like the theme park vibe, but they also have some like New Super Mario Bros. Wii kind of references, like with the roller coasters and stuff. And there's a bunch of like little Easter eggs, of course, throughout it that are cool. So it's neat. I don't have much to say about it beyond that. It's not really what I had in mind for what the final place would have been in the movie, but it's neat, I suppose. Now, this is probably maybe my favorite part of the movie. There's a sequence where the whole gang, including Fox, is driving the Common Observatory towards the final planet. And during this sequence, you hear for like 5 seconds, it's not super long, but for like 5 seconds, you hear the Galaxy Reactor theme from the final level in Galaxy 1. And no joke, when I heard that, I got goosebumps. When I heard that, I got goosebumps. So, I wish it lasted longer. Now, you do hear more of it later. There's a sequence when Mario and Peach are like sneaking around on the planet, and you do hear more of it. But that initial like 5-second sequence where you hear the do 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 do. Like when I first heard that, man, I got the goosebumps. I wish it lasted longer, but you do hear more of it later. But hey, that was probably my favorite sequence in the movie, simply because it gave me goosebumps. Right? Like that's something that a movie like this I was not expecting for it to do, but it did. So I'll give it credit there. But yeah, eventually, Mario, Peach, Luigi, and Yoshi, they land on the planet, but Fox is still in the Common Observatory. And they go down and they sneak around, and you hear more of the Galaxy Reactor theme during this time. Then eventually, Mario and Peach get trapped in this like kind of cavern, and then they go through this like, for lack of a better term, this basically Bowser Jr. does like a Mario Maker level in real time, essentially on them. It's kind of neat, and you hear like a new version of like the main Mario theme and stuff. It's neat. It's a neat, fast-paced sequence, but I don't have much to say about it other than that. Also, there's a sequence. By the way, way earlier on in the movie, Mario gives Peach like the parasol. The parasol that she is known for, especially in Smash. She gets that, and she fights with it. Obviously, we see this in one of the trailers with the ninja fight, but she also does it later on, obviously. So they get through that level, and then eventually you have the fight with Bowser. And I will say, the fight with Bowser is not quite what I had in mind. My hope was that we were going to get like a fight at least reminiscent of the fight in the first game, where you go between the different planets and you hear like the iconic music. Oh yeah, by the way, I forgot to mention this, but there is one sequence in the movie. I forget when exactly it happens, but there is a sequence in the movie where you hear the oh 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 boo doo boo no boo no boo. That was probably a really terrible interpretation of it. That's probably was the terrible interpretation of it. But you know the one I'm talking about, the iconic chorus from Galaxy 1. Like, you do hear that for like a section in this movie, but it's not during the final battle. And the final battle, funny enough, despite being the Galaxy movie, is more of a Mario 1 battle than it is like a Galaxy fight. I mean, it's kind of neat still, but it wasn't as Galaxy as I was kind of hoping for from the fight, but we do get some cool things. So first things first, the first part of the fight, which is not very long, you have Mario and Peach on a drawbridge, and it's very much like Mario 1. It's very clearly supposed to be Mario 1 when, Bowser has axes and stuff he throws at you. And that sequence lasts for maybe like a minute before he gets thrown into the lava. And then he comes back out, and now he's Dry Bowser, which is kind of cool. I didn't know about that going in. That was something I was not aware of, so that's kind of neat. Obviously the fight wasn't going to end there. There has to be a real, actual final fight of some kind. But yeah, but then finally, he comes back out as Dry Bowser, and now we have like the actual real battle. And this is where the references kind of go into overdrive. So we get a bunch of Galaxy 2 power-ups. We get the drill power-up, we get the cloud power-up, and then Yoshi has like his blue inflatable form. And we get to see them fight with those for like a few minutes. Then we get what I think is probably my favorite scene in the movie, aside from the goosebumps I got when I heard Galaxy Reactor for the first time. And this was something I did not know was in the movie whatsoever. I am very, very glad that was not spoiled on this, because this was a really cool surprise. It's minor in the grand scheme of things, but goddamn it, I will take what I can get. Luigi gets Bowser Jr.'s brush, and he tries to draw something on the ground. And what he ends up drawing is Mr. Game & Watch. And he ends up, and it's very, very brief. It lasts like probably 30 seconds. It's not very long at all. It's almost a tease, but goddamn it, I will take what I can get. Basically, Luigi, he creates Mr. Game & Watch, and then there's a joke about how, hey, I can't draw because, get it, because Game & Watch is basic or whatever. But yeah, Mr. Game & Watch is there, and in the theater, now we were sitting up at the very top of the theater, and there was a whole bunch of people on like the left of us. We were sitting on like the right corner in the top of the theater, and when Mr. Game & Watch showed up, you could hear them being like, "Oh, hey, look, that's Mr. Game & Watch." Like, you could hear them, like, they recognized who it was. I think that was the only time in the movie even Fox didn't get that as big of a reaction as that. And I'm not going to act like people were losing their minds or anything. Like, they weren't. Like, this was not a day one showing or anything. I'm sure when I watch like the audience reactions, like the theater reactions to this, when Mr. Game & Watch shows up, everyone's going to lose their mind. It wasn't like that for my theater, because we saw this again on the 4th. It's the 4th when we're recording this, so this is days after. So that big initial like, holy crap, audience is not going to be there. But I did hear everyone like recognized that was Mr. Game & Watch. I mean, of course they should. Obviously, he's been smashed since Melee. But anyways, I'm harping on this way too long. Point is, Mr. Game & Watch fights, and he has the sound effects. He has the he has the exact same sound effects we all know and love from Smash. They reuse those sound effects, and he fights Bowser for like a few seconds. It doesn't last very long, but it is cool, and he gets one big hit on Bowser before he gets destroyed by like one of the fireballs or whatever. So it doesn't last very long. It's almost a tease. It's almost a tease. But hey, we got Game & Watch for the movie for like 30 seconds, and he had the sound effects, and he had the janky movement and everything. Like, it was cool for the brief period of time he was in the movie, but I'll take what I can get. However, that is the only other non-Mario character in the movie. That's something else people are wondering going in. Is like, hey, is it just going to be Fox, or are we going to see Samus? Is anyone else going to pop up? It's just Fox. And then Game & Watch. Game & Watch is the only other non-Mario character in the movie, and he's barely in the movie. He's there basically as a glorified cameo. But hey, I'll take it. I'll take what I can get, because it was cool to see him fight Bowser for like the brief second he was on screen. But anyways, the fight continues. Shocker, eventually they win. And then actually what happens really is Peach and Rosalina. Sorry, Peach goes and saves Rosalina. Oh yeah, this is an aspect of the movie I haven't brought up yet. And I was spoiled on this beforehand, even though I don't really care personally, although I'm sure people are going to have opinions on it. But in this movie, at least in the movie universe, I'm not taking this to mean that this all of a sudden applies to the games, but in the movie universe, we find out that Rosalina and Peach are sisters. I don't really care one way or the other on that. All I will really say about it is I think it would have made way more sense to do that with like Daisy, but we'll get to that in a little bit here. But overall, I don't really have an issue with it. But I imagine some people are not going to be thrilled with that. I don't think that automatically retroactively applies to the games or anything, but I don't know. I wasn't expecting that. I will say this. If I wasn't spoiled on that beforehand, I don't think I would have seen that coming. Again, I expected Rosalina to be like way more involved in this movie than she was. I think if I were like, again, I said this earlier on, but if you were to give me like a list of like what's your number one complaint with this movie, I think my number one complaint would probably be that Rosalina is barely in it. She just sits in like a cage basically for most of the movie, and it's like, come on, like you gave her a cool fight sequence at the very beginning, but she doesn't get to fight in like the final battle or anything. No, I don't know, whatever. At least we get Fox. Although, for what it's worth, Fox is not in the final battle. That's another thing that's kind of disappointing, right? We get that Game & Watch cameo. We get the Game & Watch cameo, but we don't get to see Fox fighting Bowser. He just sits in the ship the whole fight, which is yeah. Oh well, it is what it is, I suppose. But yeah, so eventually Peach frees Rosalina. They have this thing that they show earlier on in the movie where if they touch hands, something happens. They do that, whatever. The day is saved, essentially. And yeah, and they go back to Earth, and the castle isn't there because, of course, it was destroyed when it fell down on Honey Hive. So they build a new castle, and that's pretty much where the movie ends. At least the main part of the movie. Now there is a post-credit scene. There are two post-credit scenes. The first one is Fox leaving Earth, saying, "Hey, I'm gonna go back to where I belong," and he flies away in his newly repaired R-wing after it got destroyed on the dinosaur planet. And we hear more Star Fox music when that's playing, and again, that's cool, obviously, to hear Star Fox music whenever he's on screen. And then we see that sequence from the trailer, where like there's the Luma with like that's like in the jail. We see that sequence, and then that's pretty much the first scene. Now the second scene isn't anything crazy. I wasn't expecting anything crazy, but the second post-credit scene is, I think, very much in line with kind of what they did with the first movie, where like the first movie's post-credit scene was something fairly small, significant but small. The first movie ended with Yoshi. This movie ends with Daisy. Daisy is in this movie at the very, very end as like the post-credit stinger, which I personally would have preferred something bigger than that, but I know that I'm basically just asking for Nintendo and Illumination to make this a Smash movie at that point, and I know that's not what it is, obviously. But I mean, come on, when you give me Star Fox and you give me Game & Watch, like, you know, it's like, come on, give me like Samus, give me something, give me some big recognizable character that isn't just a Mario character. But even if we don't see them for like movies for now, but whatever, we get Daisy, and you know that's fine. And what's kind of funny is I think they actually, and the thing is, honestly, I wasn't even that surprised that it was Daisy, because there's a scene earlier on in the movie when Mario and Luigi, when they're flying to Gateway, there's a little thing of back and forth with Mario and Luigi about like Peach. And there's a part where Luigi says, "Hey, and when you get Peach, you know, ask her if she's got a friend for me," which was obviously hinting towards Daisy, right? So they kind of already hinted towards her earlier on in the movie with that comment anyway. But yeah, I don't know. It's a fine enough end, I suppose, although obviously I would prefer something bigger. And the thing is, obviously, if they hadn't already dabbled in the non-Mario stuff already, I wouldn't be saying that, right? If Fox was not in this movie, and if Mr. Game & Watch was not in this movie, it'd be fine. But it feels a little disappointing only because they've now opened Pandora's box. Now, yes, I did see that apparently Miyamoto said that like there's no Smash movie coming anytime soon. And to be clear, I don't think he's lying. I agree. There isn't going to be one anytime soon. I think we're going to get one at some point, for better or for worse. But that's a whole other can of worms in and of itself. That's a whole like hour-long discussion in and of itself, like, you know, the pros and cons of a potential Smash movie, but that's besides the point. Anyway, we got Daisy at the end, sure, and that's it. 54 minutes in, and we're finally done. That That discussion was probably not very well structured at all, but in a weird way, it's almost like the movie. So here's the thing: the movie doesn't really feel like it's all that well structured. I think that might be one of the criticisms it's going to get. Now, again, I haven't read any of the reviews or watched any videos myself, but I'm just guessing what the complaints are going to be. And my guessing is that there's not much of a structure in the story. They kind of just hop from planet to planet, but it doesn't really feel like it's progressing any kind of plot. They're just kind of doing it for the sake of it. And I don't really mind that. I don't have an issue with that. But I'm guessing that's one of the complaints people would have with it. So yeah, that's pretty much the movie. So again, I know I said this at the beginning, but I want to reiterate. Well, I definitely have my criticisms of this movie. There are scenes I would definitely change or remove, for sure. But overall, I had a fine enough time with it. Again, I would say at least right now, I'd say I'd like it. I like it about as much as I like the first one, which is it's decent, but nothing amazing. You know, if you liked the first one, fine enough. I think you're gonna like this one if you haven't seen it already. I mean, obviously, if you've listened this far, I sure as heck hope you've seen it already. Otherwise, I've just spoiled the entire movie for you. But you know, I think it's a fine enough movie. If you like the first one, you'll like this one, and if you don't like the first one, then this one's gonna do you no favors. However, here's what I can say. Even putting aside whatever the critics may or may not have to say about the movie, I don't know what the audience reaction is yet. I know the critic reaction ain't great, but I don't know what the general audience reaction is, because the general audience reaction from the first movie was relatively good. Again, it wasn't Mount Olympus or anything, nor did anyone expect that out of it, but people generally liked that first movie, right? Overall. I can't imagine that's going to be any different now, but I will say I can see why this one has a lower critical score than the first one now that I think about it more. Now that I think about it more, I can kind of understand it. I still think the movie is totally fine on its own. I don't think it's a 40% on Rotten Tomatoes at all. At worst, it's like a 65, absolute worst case. And even that I think is a little low. I think it's more of a 70. It's like a 70, 73, 74, 75 is where I would probably put it, you know. Not bad, but nothing great either. You know, it's perfectly a-okay. You'll have a fine enough time. Anytime they have references and music and stuff, you'll be satisfied. But you know, it was all right. It was all right. It was decent, and I really don't think there's anything more I have to say about it other than that. So yeah, I'm curious what the next movie is going to be like, because there's no way we're not going to see Fox again. We're definitely going to see him again. It'd be weird if we didn't. But I really wonder what the next movie is going to be about, because here's one of the things I will say about Galaxy as a movie concept is I feel like if you're going to do Galaxy, that's something you build up towards, right? Like, obviously it's not on the level of like building up to a Smash movie or whatever, but like my thinking was that, oh, we'll get a Galaxy movie as like the third, maybe fourth movie. But instead, they decided to make it the second movie. And I kind of feel like they shouldn't have done that. I think they should have saved it. They should have built up to it more. But, oh well. So yeah, if I were to get kind of my last kind of final critiques out of the way overall. So, main critiques. The story there's not really much of a story. They kind of just go from place to place without much kind of cohesion, I would say. Although I don't really mind that too much, but still, there's not enough. They don't use the Galaxy soundtrack to the extent I would like, but they do use it often enough that it's not a huge deal. Obviously, I think it would have been cool to have Fox in the final fight. It would have been cool. Game and Watch didn't get destroyed in like 20 seconds. I'm sure there's other stuff off the top. I'm sure that like the more and more this movie sits in my mind, I'll have more and more kind of better ways of describing the things I like and don't like beyond what I've said already. But I think we've said enough. Again, I know this might not have been like the most glowing video in the world, but again, I liked the movie overall. But I can see why people wouldn't like it as much as the first one. Now, I'm not going to be in any rush to watch any of the reviews or anything that people have made. I'm probably going to wait for a while because I remember when the first movie came out, I like watched the movie and then I recorded my video for it. And then like immediately after, I watched like all of the videos and I kind of regretted doing that. I kind of want to let it sit there for a little bit, like maybe in a week or so. Then I'll finally watch those videos from like Captain Midnight and LS Mark and Cosmonaut and whoever. I'll watch those videos once I've had some time to really sit on it. I want to let the movie kind of marinate in my mind a little more before I like watch everyone potentially tear it apart. But I don't know. So what did you guys think? For those of you that saw the movie, did you like it? Did you not like it? Did you think it didn't live up to its potential? I mean, I will say this: the movie definitely could have been better for being the Galaxy movie, but as a Mario movie too, it was perfectly all right. But yeah, what do you guys think? Did you like it? Not like it? What parts did you like or not like? What do you guys want to see for future movies? By all means, let me know down below. And I guess with that being said, this is Logan 59XP, and I'll see you guys next time.